All right. So on the call, we've got Didier, but actually, first of all, how do I pronounce your name?
The you did it well, Didier. Yeah.
Okay, great. And that was a lucky guess. So, what is OpenBB?
Yeah. So OpenBB is a company that has been incorporated just over 2 years ago, and we are building open source finance. Basically, our mission is to democratize investment research, and we're doing it so by building a lot of open source products in the financial world, because we think that open source is the way to basically accelerate like doing investment research.
Maybe I'll give you a couple of other rapid fires just because people will be curious. How many people work in OpenBB?
I think 19, 18, 19 now.
Where are the people based?
I'm the only one in San Francisco, but we got like I think 6 in the US. Then we got Canada, Montenegro, quite a few in Portugal because of my like roots there. We've got Africa, we've got I'm forgetting, but you get the idea.
How many GitHub stars, roughly?
Almost 25,000.
Do you know how many contributors?
Last I checked was like 210 or something like that.
Are you remote or
Fully,
all in person?
fully remote.
Fully remote.
Yeah.
And actually, you guys have a really funny backstory, but we'll get into that in a second. Before we do that, let's just hear a little bit about you. So maybe I can ask you a few rapid fire questions. Where were you born?
I was born in Geneva, Switzerland.
Switzerland. Okay. How many years have you been coding?
I've been coding since university only. So that has been around 10 years. I studied electrical and computer engineering, and then I did a master's in control systems.
Mac, Windows, or Linux?
Mac,
Which IDE do you use for programming?
Cursor.
Ah, you're
Yeah.
using Cursor. Okay.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
that, did you use
VS
VS Code?
Code.
Do you compare it now to Copilot and see a difference?
I, I didn't compare it recently, but I did a few months ago. And yeah, Copilot wasn't great at the time. It was still in beta. And now that I use Cursor, I don't have any reason to look out because I really enjoy using it.
Tabs or spaces? Very important.
Spaces.
Good answer. Favorite startup, which is an OpenPP?
Post hoc.
Postdog. Ah,
Yeah.
very cool. Okay.
I
And
love
why?
the I love their content, the blog posts. We use them as well. Their product is really, really good. And they also have a really good end book.
They're a YC company. I saw the other day that Patrick Collison actually tweeted about them, giving them a shout out, how cool their website is, which is
Yeah.
true. They're a great company and great founders. What else about Didier do we need to know?
So although I was born in Switzerland, I'm actually Portuguese. I
Mm,
Both my parents are from Portugal. They moved to Switzerland for like better conditions, and I just stayed there until I was like 8 years old, and then we moved back from Portugal. So I pretty much grew in Portugal, and yeah, just happened to be born in Switzerland.
do you go back often to Portugal?
I moved to the Bay Area in January, and this year I haven't left the US because it's a long ass flight. But yes, when I was living in London before, I used to at least once a year go back to Portugal.
So you started OpenBB then in London,
Yeah,
it sounds like.
that's correct.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
which is a natural segue then. Why don't you tell us a bit about the origin of OpenBB?
Yeah, so my master's was like in control systems. I'd never done anything related with finance. But at the time at the university at Imperial, I was really excited about autonomous driving, and so and everything that encapsulated that, like with machine learning and AI. So I started wanting to learn about that, and I didn't learn Python in university, but from reading, I knew that Python was the best way to do machine learning and AI. So I started learning it, and I started doing like side projects. So I had an idea of doing something, and I was like, I'm gonna try to do this in Python to learn. And I started basically sharing that on my LinkedIn. And then one day, one of my previous maths teacher from my Portugal university reached out to me, and he said, look, I'm working on my thesis and is in neural networks to model and forecast financial time series. and I saw that you are posting a lot of Python, and this is what I wanted to do the thesis on. Do you want to help me? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. So that's what we did for several months. Basically, I helped him write the code behind his PhD thesis, which was in Python in financial space. And after that, I really enjoyed that. But this is just such a small portion of what investing is, because you're just looking at the historical data. And at the time when I finished this, I was on my first job, so I had a few months of savings as well. So I was like, now I want to start doing investing. And so I started like learning, right? You go and you understand how to read like a fundamentals sheet, income statement, balance, cash flow. Then you go and understand that there's insider trading. You understand that there's options and that impacts the price. You understand that social media can impact the price of a ticker, and it just keeps going, right? And so when I started, I knew very little. And so I learned about fundamentals. So I could spend an evening doing research using the fundamentals and looking at the historical price, right? But the more you learn, the more time it takes you to do investing, which is really weird because you're like, I'm getting better, but I'm taking also more time. And so coming from an engineer background where VS Code is optimized for efficiency, investing was not. And that was really frustrating because all I was doing was manual stuff. So like I went from spending an evening to spending my entire weekend. And honestly, what it was is taking a screenshot, putting it into a Word document, and from my perspective, I was like, why? This is just data at the end of the day. There's a symbol that changes, but the data is here. So if I can create a pipeline, I can just automate these. And so I went to look for tools, and there was nothing. And even like Bloomberg Terminal and these platforms, they don't really allow the level of automation that I was interested in. And so I grew with that frustration, and I had my notebook with like my workflow to not forget what to do when I was doing research. And my flight got canceled. This was during COVID. I was meant to visit my parents on Christmas, and I had 1 week on my hands. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to build something for this because I don't want to be spending this manual effort all the time. It's really frustrating. And the first thing that I realized is that I need data, and the data is the hard part in the investing world. But what I saw was that all of these data vendors had a similar go-to-market, which is you sign up to their website, they give you an API key, and you have access to data with that. It's not like older data, of course, but it's data nonetheless. And that data that they offer is not the same that another data provider will offer you on their free tier, and also not the same as the other one. I was like, that's great because just at the free level, if I combine all of these, that's a ton of data. And if I'm interested on anything that they offer that is paid, from my perspective of the code that I'm going to write, it's the same. It's just the API key that changes the endpoint. So like the free gives me 5 requests per minute. Fine. I upgrade the API key on whatever I build. And now the endpoint gives me 30 years, but it's the same endpoint. So I started building on that assumption that, I'm going to create something that's going to be a positive game for everyone involved. So like we focus on the technical side. The users can come. They have access to all of these data, and the data vendors as well. They like this because once they come onto the platform, they got users signing up on their platform, and they basically can upsell them. And this is what happens today when we integrate a new data vendor. They usually have a spike of users because they are using OpenBB, and then some of them get upsell because they are using it on a professional setting, or they actually really like what they are doing and they pay. And so that's kind of the assumption that I kept building this for 2 months on my spare time, and I got really excited about it. And then I made it open source because my background is not finance. So I was like, I need people smarter than me in the financial space to help me drive this product. And so I made this live, and I did a post on LinkedIn about it. And then I did a post on Reddit, and it went viral there. And then someone messaged saying, you should put this on Hacker News. I was like, oh, really? Okay, let me try. And I put this on Hacker News. We went viral there too. And then we appeared on like Vice magazine. And we got like 4,000 stars in 24 hours. All my other projects had like 1 or 2. So that was great.
Why do you think it went viral?
So that's the interesting part. So the name of the project, when I started it, I called it stock market bot or something stupid like that. And I hated it, but I didn't want to like consume brain cycles really thinking about it. I was like, something is going to come up that's going to come in a name. And I was a GameStop investor, and I'm an Elon Musk fan. And he did a tweet saying GameStonk. I was like, GameStonk Terminal. It just sounds good. And so I changed the name of the project to GameStonk Terminal. And I didn't really think about it. And this was about the time of GameStop. So when I released it, people on Reddit, they really resonated with that name. And so I really think that this was one of the reasons that we went viral. And in fact, like I know that this played the other role because the article from Vice magazine actually called us a Bloomberg terminal for GameStop. And I was like, it's actually not, but like, it doesn't matter. Like PR is PR.
Just the perfect positioning at the perfect time. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you know, it's actually very analogous to how we had our sort of breakout. We were positioning ourselves as real-time Postgres, and then one day we transformed the tagline to the open source Firebase alternative. Someone else put it on Hacker News, and it just went to the top
crazy.
for like 2 days. We went from like 8 databases to 800 overnight. In those early days, have you got any other cool things? It would have been quite a wild ride from that point on.
So when I started these, I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur like at all, like at all. And then like today I need to like, talk with like investors, like clients, firms and things like that and go to do presentations. And so like it's crazy all fast things change. I made it open source and I was building these tools like for myself, ultimately. And then like people kept like raising issues or asking for feature requests. And then like not long after, I remember someone came in and they added a full Forex menu. And at the time, I just had equity data. And so that person adding the full Forex menu was, I think, when I had like the click on my head that like, this can be huge because now people are understanding that this is just an architecture infrastructure, but we can grow from there and add around it and it can keep on growing. And because it's not proprietary and open source, people can fork the project and build on top of it for their own use cases. And so we have that really strong like foundation. Then like I was starting to talk a lot with people on the community. One of them became like the maintainer of the project, and today is a founder of a company with me. And I invited him to be a maintainer because he was contributing fast. That was the criteria. And I messaged him saying like, look, I don't have enough time in a day to actually fix this. Like, do you want to help me join as a maintainer? I had never chat with him. I didn't know where this guy was, like nothing about him. And then it turns out he was finishing a PhD in quantum physics. And now he's a founder. He's like a super, super smart guy. And I'm like, I got lucky there because like, he could have been just someone random that, he's not a nice person, for instance. I didn't do any check. I just wanted to grow the project and I saw him coding fast. And I think that when I saw people like that motivated around something that I built like on my spare time is when I actually thought that, okay, this can be huge and there may be like a business opportunity here. So like, just to give a bit of context in the financial industry, what tends to happen is like all of these like big firms, they have like a Bloomberg or a Refinitiv or a FactSet to do like research. But then all of these firms have to build something in-house because if you want more data, you can't call Bloomberg and asking them for more data, right? And so what tends to happen is that when you build like a custom tooling, you need to basically reinvent the wheel every time because there wasn't any open source like foundation. So if you're a small company, like tough luck, you need to build it from the scratch and you probably do like Streamlit. And then you use something like Supabase for your like a backend to store the data. If we talk about like a like a Sigma company, they've been building these for years and they have a team to maintain this custom solution. And it's probably like written in like C++ or something that when someone joins needs to be trained on, right? And so our positioning is we want to be the place where we want to be that product that is used as a foundation for you to build on top. There's no point in reinventing the wheel, right? You can take the structures, the architecture that we built, and then you can go to where you want. So if you are building like I don't know, DeFi, for instance, you can just fork the project and keep on working more on the DeFi side of it, for instance, and keep it proprietary if you have proprietary data that is stored on like your Supabase instance, for instance.
Since it's open source, do you commercialize it? How
Yeah.
do you go about that?
So currently, we're not making any cent from anything because everything is pretty much open source. Even the open source terminal that I'm talking about is MIT. So you can literally do anything you want on top of it. And now what we started actually this week, providing early access to firms and our design partners and whatnot, we built the Terminal Pro, which is basically a much more mature user interface that is using like React and is like really meant for teams and businesses. So you've got like widgets that you can drag and drop. You can create like shards from raw data. You have single sign-on, and like all these enterprise features like login, min roles. You can like chat with the widgets. So basically ask questions. So we have like AI like integrated. And more importantly, you can bring any data to it. So all of the platforms that I've mentioned before, these really expensive ones, they are really proprietary, closed. And so we go a lot in the different direction where our core is open source and anyone can use it. And then if you are like a firm, you can use Terminal Pro as the front end to interact with all the data, but also bring all of these other data sources. And I mean, I think this was the reason we are also talking is because one of our design partners that they managed like 2 billion, they actually use Supabase. And so when we told them that, oh, look, we allow you to bring any data onto this like your financial like dashboard, they were interested because they use Supabase. And one of the examples that we've done to create a backend was using Supabase. Yeah.
Why don't we talk about the integration that you're building and how it came
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, so we are used to Python a lot. And so we wanted to show that you can build an integration easily. And so we use Fast API and just use the clients of the databases or data warehouses that we are interested in. And Supabase was one of them, but we also did for ClickHouse. We also did MinesDB. We also do the Snowflake. So this is like a really cool feature for quants because the quants at these firms are the ones usually building these like these Streamlit dashboards or these connections. And right now we are saying that like it doesn't need to be just the quants, like the analysts can have a role, right? That really opens like a whole new door of opportunities.
It's a fascinating world because I imagine most of our audience watching this will be builders. Do you want to share a little bit more about the programming world of quants and algo traders? What skills do they need?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a really really good question. So when I was like starting to learn about finance, I actually like learning. I really like the concept of like a quant because for me it seemed like a really like complete like profession. I don't know if complete is the right word, but like you have to be really good at coding, but then you also need to be really good at finance. And I really like that so much that as soon as I did the GameStock terminal, I actually applied the job at Bloomberg because I was like, I want to learn more about the financial side, and I really like the coding perspective. But today, like meeting quants, I don't. It's hard to break in. I would say from like talking with people, it's really hard to break in, and is a niche. Like it's really hard to find people that are really good at both. So usually is a compromise, and like with ones I speak with, they are usually either a bit more on the financial side or a bit more on the technical side. But both of these are skills that then you can master over time. So then they start like compensating on the side that they are like less strong.
What if we flip it? So, what if you don't want to get in, but you want to start building tools and businesses for this industry? What do they need to know? What certifications do they need, or how do they break in from that side?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't seen many startups building like a successful business model like as an indie in this space because like usually the costs to get started are a bit high because of the data. I've never seen someone being bootstrapped in this space, to be honest with you. Like,
So I guess you're a rare breed because that's how you started and you
well,
found some traction.
yes and no, right? Because I was building just a project at the time, and there's no way we would be probably having this chat today if we weren't like funded. Because we got like funding then a few months after we were able to raise with OSS Capital, and that's how we were able to like really grow our team.
But that's a nice open source success story. Started as a project, probably very similar to almost all open source projects.
Yeah.
JJ, obviously from OSS Capital, found you somehow. How did you get funding? What was the process?
Yeah. So yeah, you actually said it really well. So yeah, JJ found us. So JJ saw like our growth, and he had seen us like pretty much after we launched. He had seen it, and he had kept an eye on us, and he saw that we kept on growing. And so JJ messaged me and James because he saw that we were the most active ones. Actually, he didn't message me. He messaged James only because I was in London, right, and James was in the US, and so he messaged James. And it happened that James was on his honeymoon in Napa Valley. So he was like, "Oh, like, oh, you're a VC and you're interested in the project." He's like, "I'm on honeymoon. I probably cannot spend a lot of time, but I think my wife will give me like 30 minutes for us to meet." So James met JJ. They talked a bit about what we were working on, and then I ended up meeting JJ. I think a couple days after, and so a few weeks later we closed a seed round with him. So that was pretty much like a bit of luck, I guess, or just the traction that allowed this and a vision for the future. As soon as we got the funding, we hired straight, like I think, like 8 people or something like that. And those were the most active members that were working on the project. That was sick because I'm literally paying people for more of their time. There's no need for me to assess their commitment because they were already working on it for free and they knew where we were
Yeah.
going and they were excited about it. So I was like, I'm just paying you for you to quit your job and have more time to work on it. That's it. And like, if your project is not open source, there's no way that this happens, you know? And now that we've experienced like having to hire outside of open source, it sucks. Like it sucks that you need to spend more time. You need to have like, multiple people to assess a candidate because it's really hard based on a couple of interviews, figure out someone. But like on the open source side, you get all of these like almost like as a given. And like I think I got spoiled for the open source because I was like, oh, these hires were all like amazing. And so when it came to hiring, like I've learned a lot. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you actually contribute to a project like a lot and you add value, it's really hard for the company to not give you a job. I mean, unless they are running out of cash, but if they have cash and they are growing, they're not going to ignore you because you're going to be bringing so much value.
Okay, maybe to wrap it up, since you started on Reddit, I'll give you a Reddit question. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Um, oof, I think I think the 100. I think
The 100 duck-sized
duck
horses.
size horses. Yeah, I think so.
Why?
Because it's like yeah, yeah. I'm thinking like because a big duck like cool. Yeah, that's a good question. Like I never had to actually think about those. I see them, but I was like, I never thought about them. Um, I don't know because I feel like 100, I could like run far away, and then just a few of them reach out to me, and then like fight those, and then run to the other side, and then fight them. And so I'll kind of divide them, and then like fight them like individually almost. Whereas like a big one, there's not really any strategy that I can have. I'm just like fighting like hands on, and so like my likelihood is less because there's no strategy that I can employ. I don't know.
Okay, great.